Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we are reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 14, which is titled Brahma's Prayers to Lord Krishna. And we are beginning with text number 25. Atmanam evatma, it's a long one. Evatmataya vijanatam. Atmanam evatmataya vijanatam. Tenaiva jatam nikam prapanchitam. Jnanena bhuyapi chatat palite paliyate. Rajvam ahir bhoga bhavoyata. A person who mistakes a rope for a snake becomes fearful, but then he gives up his fear upon realizing the so-called snake does not exist. Similarly, those who fail to recognize you as the supreme soul of all souls, the expansive, illusory, material existence arises, but knowledge of you at once causes it to subside. Purport. Those submerged in an illusion see material existence as infinite, just as one who is submerged in water sees only water all around him. For example, material scientists and philosophers, submerged deep within the ocean of material illusion, imagine that material nature extends infinitely in all directions. In fact, the material creation is a finite ocean of ignorance in which the foolish living entities, such as material scientists, are unceremoniously dunked by the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. To be trapped in a world in which all things are born and die is certainly a fearful existence. Anyone trapped in a dark place naturally becomes fearful. Since material life is always covered by darkness of ignorance, every conditioned soul is fearful. Isn't that, there's that verse, I think that verse comes up, Bhayam, no, that's in 11th canto, Bhayam Dutiya Abhineshata Syat. No, that one is absorbed material existence, he becomes full of bhayam. Material nature is not the ultimate reality, and thus analysis of matter can never provide answers to the ultimate questions. This dark, snake-like existence called material life immediately disappears as soon as one opens his eyes to the bright light of Krishna consciousness. So that's the first verse. Om Jnana Tamarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshunritam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Katachana Smite Yasmin Duskaram Sukaram Bhavet Vismite Viparitam Shat Shri Chaitanya Namamitam. So here we hear a little bit about Bhayam. We hear about the snake analogy. Does anybody know what are the 5 kleshas? 5 kleshas. You have them in the Yoga Sutras.
Avidya, Asmita, Raja-dvesha, Avinivesha.
Yes, you got our yoga teacher. For sure, she's got it. Nice, nice. Can you say a little bit? Could you tell us a little bit about it?
Avidya means ignorance. It's said to be the bowl of all the others. So it is the ignorance to that we are all just body and mind. Asmita is more the ego. So which Jagannath always says is that avidya is categorical, asmita is individual. So it's I, my body, and my mind. Rajas is always hankering, wanting. Dvesha is always aversion, pushing away. And Vinivesha is fear of death.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much. All right. Our local expert yoga teacher, Yoga Sutra teacher. Thank you so much. All right. And it all starts with this ignorance. Ignorance is that we have in the Bhagavatam, Bhayam. This verse you can find actually, this Bhagavatam verse, Bhayam Dvitiya Abhine, being absorbed in the duality, we become full of fear. You can find a correlation to those 5 points in that verse as well. So here it talks about when a person mistakes a rope for a snake, they become fearful. So I remember in Vrindavan, I was walking, and my wife and I were walking, and this little naughty boy, and Vrindavan is just they have their acharya. Who's the acharya of naughtiness in Vrindavan? It's Krishna himself. So they have their acharya there. So there was this naughty boy. He was walking, and he had a stick. And on the stick, he had a little tiny thread. And then on the end of the thread, he had a rope. And he was walking, and he was shaking his stick like this. And it was already past sunset. So what do you see? You just see a boy walking, and there is a snake following him like that. Because he has a little magic trick he was basically doing. You have a little tiny thread. You can't see the thread. All you do is see the rope. And the rope is not just a rope that looks like a snake. It's moving like a snake. And it's following this boy. And I think some of us have some past life fears. So my wife, she was like very startled. I could see, luckily I could see, I said, no, it's just a kid doing a prank. And he had, it's a rope with a string attached, and he's just walking around shaking it like that. And so firsthand experience, mistaking a rope for a snake. And so after driving home from there is a wonderful lecture by Radhika Raman Prabhu. Here, let's see if I can find, here you can see it. Radhika Raman. If you look up Radhika Raman, PhD series at the Shravan Festival in Mayapur. I recorded these in 2015. It's a 4-part series, and I was listening to it last night because he makes some very interesting points on the this snake and rope example, but he makes it on the last lecture. I didn't know which lecture it was. And so klesha is can be ignorance. It also means suffering. Like what are the types of kleshas? There's another kleshas that we are more familiar in bhakti are the kleshas of the body, kleshas of others' bodies, and the kleshas of material nature. So Adhyatmaka Klesh, Adhibhautika Klesh, and Adhidevaka Klesh. We're suffering due to our own body and mind. We're suffering because of somebody else giving us a hard time, or just the material nature is giving us suffering. It's too hot, it's too cold. So I was listening to these series. They're about an hour and a half each, trying to get a refresher on the thing that he said about the rope and the snake. Otherwise, just trying to bring it out by my rusty memory. And I, unfortunately, it was at the the last lecture, so I missed the super detailed information. So I would suggest looking up Radhir Kaman, PhD at Shravan Festival, Mayapur. And if you want to get specifically information about the rope and the snake and all the different aspects of it, Shankaracharya's interpretation versus Jiva Goswami's understanding, and how they're very different. Just hop on to the last lecture. What I can remember is the rope and the snake. The impersonalist philosophy, they have this presentation of anirvachaniya, that it's something that cannot be said. It is neither real, and it's not unreal. It's neither real nor is it unreal, nor can you say it's not real, nor can you say it's not unreal. It's this whole very, very ambiguous and confusing presentation. And it's actually different from achintya. Achintya has a different connotation. Inconceivable actually has a different connotation. And this is just for my rusty memory, so please forgive me. So one thing, when you think about mistaking a rope for a snake, you only mistake things that have similar qualities. You do not see a rope and you say, oh, I thought it was a potato, or I thought it was an Xbox. Oh, I thought it was, a tiger, or I thought it was, I don't know, anything that's not rope-like. You mistake the rope for the snake because of their similar qualities. And so the idea is that the snake represents the illusion, and that but the rope is actually something that is being reflected, that is being transposed as the illusion. So the idea is that we're seeing, or the rope is the illusion, and the rope, we're making the illusory assumption that it is a snake, and we're seeing the rope, and we're making the illusory assumption that we see the snake. And so just like if I were going window shopping on Fifth Avenue, you go and see what do you see right now? You see the beautiful Christmas window presentations. People just go there just to see all the cool dioramas that they make. Imagine if we could have all kinds of "You're Not the Body" dioramas on Fifth Avenue. That'd be great. You're Not the Body, karma, reincarnation, Krishna, and Leelas. So people go to see all these creative, beautiful presentations. Now, if you look in the window, oftentimes you can see in the reflection, you can see what's behind you. You can see another scene. And because you have this awareness, you understand that when you're seeing that reflection, you know that image is not happening. It's not something that's happening in the window. It's a reflection of a reality that's behind you. And so similarly, when we see the rope as a snake, it's only because snakes have reality. Snakes do exist. We don't. We mistake the rope for the snake. One reason is because they have similar qualities. So we mistake this world as real. This world of variety is real because the reality has variety. And we mistake the rope for the snake. The rope for the snake, not the snake for the rope. We mistake the rope for the snake because snakes actually exist. And so we mistake this reality as reality because reality actually exists. And that's what I can remember so far on that seminar. I was skipping through, I was at the end, I was like, man, I really want to hear this part. And it's like the whole like maybe 30, 45 minutes of the last lecture is dedicated to that subject. But I did get to learn a lot about Jiva Goswami, so maybe I can share that with you. But before that, let's continue on to the next verse, because we're tasked with 2 verses. So now on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 14, Text 26. Agyana samgyo bhavabandha moksho dvanamo nanyo sta rita gya bhavat ajashrat siti atmani kevale pare vicharyan mane taranav ivahani. The conception of material bondage and the conception of liberation are both manifestations of ignorance. This is something that is also brought out in the 11th canto. Anybody guess why? Let's read that again. The conception of material bondage and the conception of liberation are both manifestations of ignorance. Any guesses? It talks in 11th canto, it talks about this the kind of the burning of ignorance away, and then even the burning of the discarding of jnana, of knowledge. That one goes, the knowledge burns ignorance away, but then you also burn away the knowledge. So what does that mean? Anybody guess? Let's see if I can find that statement. It's in the Uddhava Gita. Any guesses? Because that's right here in this verse right here. The conception of material bondage and the conception of liberation are both manifestations of ignorance. Let's see. Let's check the comments. What's the thing? Counterfeit money. Okay, I think that's about more of the previous, the snake in the rope. Okay, so there is being asleep, and then there is the process of waking up. But so that's like kind of the conception of liberation. It's the process of waking up, and the other one is being asleep. And when you're fully conscious or fully awake, then both of them have the process of waking up only has relevance in relation to being asleep. So they're both discarded. Being outside of the scope of true knowledge. Okay, so here we're going to see the conception of material bondage and the conception of liberation are both manifestations of ignorance. Being outside the scope of true knowledge, they cease to exist when one correctly understands the pure soul is distinct from matter and is always fully conscious. At that time, bondage and liberation no longer have any significance, just as day and night have no significance from the perspective of the sun. So if you're good friends with the sun god and you're traveling on the sun, then there's no conception of day and night. This is coming from a seeing life from a different perspective. So the perspective of the process of liberation and the perspective of being in ignorance, they have no significance if one is actually outside of that situation. They're no longer in ignorance. Purport: material bondage is illusion because a living entity actually has no relationship with the material world. Because of false ego, the conditioned soul identifies himself with matter. Therefore, so-called liberation is simply giving up an illusion rather than release from actual bondage. Yet, if we think that the suffering of material illusion is real, and that liberation is a meaningful release from suffering, and mere absence of material existence is still insignificant compared to the achievement of factual spiritual life, which is the positive, eternal reality opposed to the negative illusion of material life. Ultimately, Krishna consciousness of pure love of Godhead is the only significant, meaningful, and permanent status for every living entity. So, we've heard many examples of, if imagine you're in this dreamlike state and you see a tiger. What are the solutions? You get out your, arsenal. Do you get your weapons? Do you get your kind of bear spray? Do you get in a fast vehicle? There's so many different options you may think. But the process of just waking up is the best solution to get out of that miserable situation. But that process is actually, it's, just, if you were to describe that, I was suffering in this dream and then I woke myself up, it really has no significance in reality. It's just a dream. Even the process of waking up was just in relation to ignorance. Last part of the purport: since the darkness of night is caused by the absence of the sun, one would not experience night within the sun itself, nor would one experience individual days separated by nights. So similarly, with the pure living entity, there is no material darkness, and thus no experience of liberation from such darkness. When the conditioned soul comes to this platform of pure consciousness, he becomes fit to associate with the Supreme Pure, the personality of Godhead, and the Lord's own abode. So this is very nice. You have this example of the sun and the rays. Now, generally, when we conceive that, when someone hears, okay, you're saying God is a person, but I know people and they're terrible. They have so many bad qualities. And so we aren't you just anthropomorphizing God? Aren't you just making him, you're imposing your human condition on the Supreme? And so there's, I have one example I can think of. So there's a man, he's from Idaho, and what do people like to eat in Idaho? Potatoes. And so he's wondering, what do people in Japan like? What are they like? And so he comes to the conclusion that people in Japan love potatoes. Why wouldn't they love potatoes? And then someone comes and they say, my dear sir, you are potato-pomorphizing Japanese people. You're imposing your conception of potato-ness on Japanese people. That people in Japan hate potatoes. And so he has this opposite conclusion. And so someone will say, you're anthropomorphizing God. And the other one says, no, it's the opposite. God must not be a person. And so these are both conclusions, the negative and the positive, or the sense of conclusion that is coming from some type of conception or attachment. They're coming from a particular box. One is the opposing that idea, and the one is coming pro the idea. Now, if we want to know what's happening in Japan, what's the way do we find out what's happening in Japan? How do you find out? I mean, you get some, if we're sitting here in New York, want to know what's happening in Japan, then we got to have some authentic source of information that's coming in from Japan. We call it avaroha panta. It's deductive. It's descending. Means we got to get some information, news channel, or on the phone with somebody from Japan. We have to get some line. The knowledge has to come from that side to us, not that we extend our imagination or even our telescopes. If we stand on the roof of the tallest building in New York, and we're not going, we call up Amrita Kishore, talk to her mom. Yes. Then we find out what's happening. So similarly, if we want to know what is God, we have to get information that is um, possibly or supposedly from God, and then we examine that information. You see, does it have some reasonability? Like, if we get some information from about Japan, and we see there's this giant lizard, it's blowing blue fire, knocking down buildings, and it looks pretty real, but it doesn't have great logic to it. Its foundations seem kind of weak. Then we're not obliged to accept it. So we see if the information makes sense, if its application produces some results within this world, like if we apply the conclusion that Japanese people love potatoes, then we go to like a Japanese grocery store. We should find like everything is very potato based, but it doesn't seem to be. So there's a bit about this imposing the conception. And so we look at the Sastra, like we learned yesterday. We were listening to that seminar on Jiva Goswami. Jiva Goswami, how many verses are in the Srimad Bhagavatam? We said 18,000. Mahabharata, how many verses? Anybody know? Any guesses? 100,000. 100,000. Massive book. You know, I think it's considered it's the largest novel in the world. It's a massive book. Now, Jiva Goswami, he wrote 400,000 verses. I don't think any of us, does anybody know anyone here? Like, do you know someone who knows someone who knows someone who has read the Mahabharata in its entirety? Not the extremely abridged version that we all read, but the actual, verses, 100,000 verses. I don't think any of us know. I don't know anybody who's read the Mahabharata in its entirety, or we'll just speak of like study it. And the Jiva Goswami, because it's such a huge book. Like if you have the Ganguly edition, it's it's 6,000 something pages. Although that one's a little hard to read. It's how hath thee thou belabored. It's all like a old English. I know H.D. Goswami. Yes, he was trying to translate Mahabharata, and it really took the wind out of him. It was he was. I think he got some 300 chapters in, and the whole Srimad Bhagavatam is 335 chapters, but he was still just scratching at the surface. There was still so much more to go. So he did not continue that. It was really a monumental task. So Jiva Goswami wrote 400,000 verses. The Goswamis altogether, they wrote some million verses, but Jiva Goswami is almost half of them. So the seminar is at Mayapur, and when you go to Mayapur, you see a beautiful dome, and most people where we take great awe, we see the dome and the eyes go down, and very few of us will think about what's underneath, what's the foundation. So Jiva Goswami, he was very much important in establishing the foundation. You have like when Lord Chaitanya appeared, and he started spreading Krishna's glories and chanting, and everywhere he went, he flooded everywhere with love of God, except for one place. He avoided going to Varanasi, Banaras, Kashi. And then we had Tapan Mishra, Chandra Shekhar. They invited Lord Chaitanya, and they begged him to meet with the personalists, the sannyasis, the Mayavadi sannyasis that were there. And by the influence of his beauty, by his humility, and by how he spoke, he was able to have great influence over all these sannyasis in Varanasi. These generally the criticism of the Vaishnavas, the Gaudiya Vaishnavas and Vaishnavas, is that you're all a bunch of silly sentimentalists. He said this criticism is not just something of in Lord Chaitanya's time. Practically anybody sees a devotee chanting on the street, and their mind is, oh, there's this bunch of sentimental people. And so each generation is tasked to present in a way that it shows how it's, no, this is a very intellectual, very comprehensive. This is a solid philosophy. And so Lord Chaitanya did that with Prakashananda Saraswati. And then Jiva Goswami also did that, especially with the Satsandarbhas. And so in the Satsandarbhas, first Jiva Goswami actually went back to Varanasi, where Lord Chaitanya was, and he studied there. He studied Nyaya, he studied the Saddarshanas, he studied the Advaita philosophy, he studied like the Shankaracharya's presentation. And this Radhikaman Prabhu, he was saying that his book Satsandarbha, it's actually quite difficult book. It is written for an ancient class of intellectuals. He's writing it in such a way that there is an assumption that you've already have most of the Vedas memorized. You already have the commentaries, all the different, specifically you memorize the commentaries on Vedanta, especially Sharyak Bhashya by Shankaracharya. You have you've studied and mastered the system of logic, because he writes in such a way, just to give like one word, or like Radhikaman, he went to a Sanskrit scholar. He himself is a Sanskrit scholar, but he was puzzled by how one of this parts was the way the dialogue was going. And it said something like, instead of saying this is a chair, it would say something like, this object possesses the quality of chairness. And so he was, puzzled. He asked this scholarly friend, why is it speaking like this? Why is it written like this? He said, oh, this is specifically Nyaya, the school of logic. This is how they discuss things. And so there's this really, really high, elevated, the presentation is really meant for somebody who is a very, very advanced scholar. He said he would spend one day just translating it as one verse or two verses. They're so complex, so much complexity there. One thing he presents that, let's see what I can remember. There is, in the Maha Mantra, how many personalities are there? What are the different personalities in the Maha Mantra? Or if you have a Vedic, if you have a Vedic shloka, and the shloka says, he went to the market, how many people are indicated in that shloka? You have the speaker saying it, he went to the market. You have the person in the market, the person that went to the market. Market may be empty. And then you have the person who's receiving that sound vibration. So they're in the Maha Mantra, and many verses you'll find you have the Krishna's internal energy, Radharani, you have Krishna himself, and then you also have the Jiva. The Jiva is in the Maha Mantra in the sense that the Maha Mantra is invocative. It's in this way of calling. Okay. conception of material bondage and the conception of liberation are both manifestations of ignorance. I will stop here and I'll see if you have any comments or reflections. I want to also look up something, that part from the 11th cantos. If y'all could share something, and then I'll see if I can share some more about that part, that verse.
I was just thinking of Srila Prabhupada, who was so merciful that he gave us access to this cryptic scriptures and meanings and underlying context so that we can take advantage and benefit from it. Thank you, Srila Prabhupada, for that. Just a quick remark. And I see Ananda Manjari has her hand raised.
Yes, Haribo, I don't feel like you finished your last point of, or I don't feel the conclusion of it. Like, what was the purpose of bringing, like, who is speaking, and the three examples, even when you say.
Let me go back.
And the Mahamantra.
Yes. These are just different points of Jiva Goswami's presentation in the Satsandarbha. So yeah, he shows how many of the important verses of the Bhagavatam you have these three elements. You have the jiva, the tatashta shakti, marginal energy, the antaranga shakti, the internal energy of Krishna, and you'll have bahiranga shakti, the external energy, and you'll have Krishna himself. These different elements are energies of Krishna, and Krishna himself. Many of the important verses, or even important mantras, will have at least three. They'll have the tatashta shakti, the internal energy, and Krishna himself. Like you have even this mantra, or this, not mantra, this beach, oh, and there are many different aspects of the three syllables that are there, not syllables, but letters that are there. And one of them is the marginal energy, the internal energy, and in Krishna himself. And then there's also the anuswara, is there's the external energy can be included as well. So I was just kind of drawing on different points, what I remember from his Satsandarbha class.
I want to, so now I understand that logically, and I'm trying to think, like, how does that apply towards our process of chanting or our process of connecting with the holy name?
So that the holy name it's complete. It's everything is there. Krishna, the devotee is being indicated in the holy name. The devotee is like Prabhupada said, calling with like a child calling for his mother, a baby calling for his mother. So there's nothing missing outside of the holy name. Everything in existence, all the different tattvas, everything is there in the holy name. Hare Krishna.
Well, I'm still grappling with the idea that liberation and bondage are both.
Yeah, I'm trying to find that verse. There's a verse in 11th canto that talks more about it.
They're both, what does it say? They're both erroneous? We're neither liberated.
They're both connected to illusion itself.
Connected to illusion.
Yeah. Like the example of the sun, the day and night means nothing if you're standing up, if you're a resident of the sun planet, or if you're the sun god. Day or night has no real meaning. Or trying to wake up or being in ignorance has no real meaning if you're fully conscious.
I remember one verse that says that a devotee is transcendental to the different stages: wakefulness, deep sleep, and dreaming. I remember that. And one devotee was saying he was on the train with Srila Prabhupada, and Prabhupada looked like he was dozing. And one devotee whispered to the other, "Prabhupada's sleeping." And then Srila Prabhupada looked up and said, "Write this down." So he was transcendental to the different states. Even though his body was resting, he was conscious even in a deep sleep condition. Whereas a conditioned soul is different degrees of awareness depending on what level of wakefulness you're at. I don't know. I still can't really, like you said, the being on the sun means there's no meaning for day and night, but it's like day, isn't it? Doesn't it mean being on the sun is just like bright and light and?
But you're not like in the process of waking up. Yeah, let me see if I can type. Let's see if I can find the keywords. I think burn and knowledge. I don't know. I'm trying to find this section somewhere in the 11th canto.
In the meantime, I can try to add, because I was studying actually dreams with Yogi Charu, and then we were going through his understanding, and also like Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, he worked a lot with that. And from the scriptures, it says that essentially the astral dimension is meant to purify us so we can connect with the spiritual dimension. But as a pure devotee, they are always in the spiritual dimension, so they always surpass the astral dimension. And in forms like for Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, he would use the astral dimension to actually serve, because they give instruction to his disciples and deliver messages and give solace to many people through his travel in the astral dimension. But overall, when one connects with the spiritual dimension, there's no need to be in the astral.
Yes, I'm trying. It's somewhere in the 11th canto where they speak about there's all this advice of how to live, how to perceive things, and in the very end it says, well, and they get it's kind of a confusing statement. I think it even brings up a question by the listener, but he says, but besides even seeing purity or impurity, or just seeing like the duality is itself a part of the illusion itself, and so he must transcend that as well. And trying to find it. Sorry.
How is that related to like Madhyama Adhikari and Uttama Adhikari perceptions?
Yeah, well, the Madhyama is the one who has that. He sees the Vaishnavas, the innocent, who are in a position to accept or be influenced towards bhakti. Those who are adverse, who have no inclination, and the Supreme Lord. And so he relates with all these in different manners. And so the Madhyama has that advancement that he can influence, but he also has that vision where he can see where who needs what influence, or what kind of relationship to interact with. Like if someone is innocent, meaning they're open to suggestion, then he can present bhakti, he can suggest bhakti, and then he can instead of suggesting it to somebody who is adverse, or and then with the Vaishnavas, then he's serving, he is engaging in loving service and revealing one's heart and confidence, and as you say, the dati pratigrinati, he's engaging those loving exchanges. And so he realizes how to relate. And so he has that that vision where Uttama to preach has to have that Madhyama vision. He has to be able to see who is innocent, who is practicing, who has some attachment to Krishna, who is completely antagonistic, and thus be able to communicate appropriately. Oh, I think I might have found it. Ah. Oh, I found it. I think I found it. It's the last part of chapter 19th of 11th canto.
Hari Purusham Tamaham Jami Govindam Hari Purusham Tamaham Jami Govindam.
Nityananda Chandra Prabhu, you there?
Yes.
So tell us what it is that you were looking for.
Okay.
Jeffrey Eckler Prabhu has some interesting thoughts. I can't even read them. It is so many words that I don't know.
Okay. So
yeah.
this is chapters called Perfection of Spiritual Knowledge. This is in 11th canto. This is Krishna speaking to Uddhava Gita. And he says, and he's describing these various excellences. So he says, I'm just going to, I'm just going to read the last clump of verses. It's just actual opulence is my own nature as the personality of Godhead, through which I exhibit unlimited opulence, 6 opulences, unlimited. The supreme gain of life is devotional service to me. We might think of so many other gains, but this is actually supreme gain. Actual education is nullifying the false perception of duality. That's real education. Real modesty is not, is to be disgusted with improper activities. Beauty is to possess good qualities, such as attachment. Real happiness is to transcend material happiness and unhappiness. Real misery is to be implicated in searching after sex pleasure. A wise person is one who knows the process of freedom from bondage. And a fool is one who identifies with his material body and mind. The real path in life is that which leads me, and the wrong path is sense gratification, by which the consciousness is bewildered. Actual heaven, what is heaven? Heaven is where there's motive goodness, whereas hell, where is a predominance of ignorance. So hell he's not saying it's a place. It can be a place, but it's anywhere there's a lot of ignorance. I'm everyone's true friend, acting as the spiritual master of the entire universe. My home is the human body. My dear friend Uddhava, one who is enriched with good qualities is actually said to be rich. One who is unsatisfied in life is actually poor. A wretched person is one who cannot control his senses, whereas one who is not attached to sense gratification is the real controller, the real king. One who attaches himself to sense gratification is the opposite, a slave. I've thus elucidated all these matters about which you have inquired. Okay, so here's the part. So he's saying, this is good, this is bad. It's good if you're sense controlled, then you're free. If you're not sense controlled, you're a slave. So there's all these different advices there. Then he says, but there's no need for more elaborate description on these good or bad qualities, since to constantly see good and bad is itself a bad quality. The best quality is to transcend material good and evil. And then, he hears that and he's like, what are you saying? Uddhava says, like, The whole scripture is full of things telling you this is good, this is bad. So I'm confused. So chapter 20, which is titled Pure Devotional Service Surpasses Knowledge and Detachment. Uddhava presents his question saying that, that's how we know what is good piety and sin. How we have our whole civilization is based on, the Shastra is giving. How can we without seeing the difference between piety and sin, how can we understand anything? So he's asking this question, and it goes in verse 6. Verse 6, then the Lord starts. Path of knowledge, path of work, path of devotion. Let's see. We're going to have to read the whole chapter to get a. Material, this is 36th verse, material piety and sin, which arise from good and evil of this world, cannot exist within my unalloyed devotees, who being free from material hankering, maintain steady spiritual consciousness in all circumstance. Indeed, all such devotees have achieved me, the Supreme Lord, who am beyond anything that can deceive my material intelligence. There's a whole chapter answering this question. But let's see. There's another part where it talks about the burning of jnana. There's a verse, but I'm not well prepared. Any reflection?
Hard, I mean, if I was like a 7-year-old, how would you summarize what you just said to me? Nityananda Chandra Prabhu.
Okay, let's see. Okay, so that last sentence, he says, let's see, where's the purport? Anything in the purport that helps us out? The Lord concludes his analysis by stating there's no need for further elaboration on these good or bad qualities. Indeed, the purpose of life is to transcend materially good and bad qualities and come to the liberated platform of pure Krishna consciousness. This point will be further explained in the following chapter. And the purpose of our doing good and avoiding bad is all for the service of Krishna. So we just want to come to that platform. And when we're on that platform, then we'll be only motivated by the Shuddha Sattva, the pure activities.
Yeah, transcend good and bad by devotional service. Bhima Prabhu, be careful transcending the good. Okay?
But I don't know if it's a topic for a 7-year-old. It's Uddhava heard this thing and he was confused. Krishna was talking to him. And he's like, what? I don't understand it. So he spoke a whole chapter.
Yeah. Thank you, Nityananda Chandra Prabhu. Thank you very much. Would anyone like to contribute or reflect or ask a question? It's hard. Rich is keeping his camera off. Bhima Prabhu is keeping his camera off. Come on. Yeah, Rich, where have you been? Are you still on the path of devotion?
Like I said, I just keep your faces in front of me. I know I'm going the right way, but anyhow, recently got back to Maine. That's where I am geographically. But so I, this long journey I just took was to go visit my in-laws for the holidays. And it's hard to strike up a conversation with them on Krishna consciousness, but they are pretty devout Catholic. So while I was there, I just picked up a Bible, which I never really spent much time looking at before. And as Nityananda Chandra was reading that verse from the 11th canto, which is one I revisit a lot. I love that because it just goes through, this is good, this is bad, this is good, this is bad, this is good, this is bad. And then you get to the end and he just sort of like flips the script on the whole thing and says, yeah, but we really don't need to talk about this that much because that's not the point of living. And anyhow, to take that back to the Bible, I was thinking about the Garden of Eden and the fall of man and how ultimately man and woman's original state was one that was unknowing of good and bad and shame for your nakedness or not or what have you. And ultimately it was the partaking of that knowledge of good and evil that humanity's been struggling with. There's this concept, this place, there's this be good and evil, and beyond duality that also exists in the Bible. And then also I was reading, let's see, I think it's not my area of expertise, but Christ was saying, be as little children in order to enter the kingdom of heaven. But anyhow, I think the concept there was that it's not that children are necessarily without flaws, but they are completely dependent, and in a sense, they're surrendered in a way because they're so naively dependent upon their parents or caretakers or what have you, and we should be that way with respect to Krishna. But anyway, this is all way beyond my pay grade. I just didn't want you to think I was hiding out. So I'm here trying to walk the path and keep you in front of me. Hare Krishna.
I found the verse that I was thinking of. The other verse.
Lay it out, Nityananda Chandra.
Okay, so this is 11th canto, chapter 10. Chapter 10 is titled The Nature Fruit of Activity. And here you have, this is Burijan Prabhu's study guide. So the verse describes, okay, so his is his study guide. In this text, 12 and 13, Krishna concludes a list of the results one achieves by properly following Varnashram Dharma. By following the work prescribed by the Vedas, even with the fruit of mindset, one achieves attachment and knowledge. The Lord makes it clear that the fire of knowledge, vidya, gained from an expert guru, burns ignorance to ashes. This avidya arises from Maya. This ignorance arises from Maya and forces the eternal soul to suffer birth and death. With ignorance destroyed, vidya herself is also destroyed. And then the verse says, in verse 13, quote, just as fire ceases when the stock of fuel has been consumed. So the fire is eating up ignorance, and when the ignorance is done, then the fire is done. And then then it continues on. The BBT purport to Srimad Bhagavatam 11:10-13 explains the destruction of vidya for the advancing devotee. Quote, so this is they're quoting the purport. As one advances to the perfectional stage of Krishna consciousness and experiences the presence of the Lord everywhere, one's attention shifts to the transcendental platform. At that time, pure knowledge itself, one's constant technical awareness of illusion. So that this is what vidya is, the constant technical awareness of illusion, that you're aware of ignorance, you're aware of sleep, diminishes, just as fire diminishes and is extinguished after consuming its stock of fuel. And then it continues. In his comment on the same text, Vishnu Chakrabarti Thakur further explains the destruction of both knowledge and ignorance, vidya and avidya. There he explains that knowledge can be compared to fire. Vidya, the pure knowledge coming from the Lord, destroys maya, made of avidya, or ignorance, in the form of identification with the subtle and gross bodies, the bondage of samsara. After destroying avidya's qualities, vidya itself is destroyed just as a fire goes out when the fuel is exhausted. Then by pure bhakti, which has also been practiced along with vidya, Gana Mishra Bhakti, one attains Shantarati, then residence in the Lord on the Lord's planet. On the other hand, the Gyanis who perform bhakti in order to obtain knowledge, Bhakti Mishra Jnana, merged into the Paramatma after vidya and vidya are destroyed. Okay. To describe why the Jnana Mishra Bhaktis are thought here as practicing pure devotional service, Vishnu Chakrabarti Thakur explains more in his comments on Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Bhakti does not appear when the obstacles such as lust and anger and their constant influence are present. These devotees practice with a suitable form of detachment, yukta vairagya, without giving up the desire of liberation. Although they have a desire for liberation, this does not destroy their pure bhakti, because they desire liberation from samsara in order to destroy the lust and anger and not merge into the Lord. Moreover, they worship with a desire for liberation only during the first stage of their practice. I think I read too much, but the idea is that, there's the constant, constant awareness of the entanglement of Maya. That's called knowledge. And so when you're liberated, then you're not, constantly aware of the entanglement of Maya. You're just immersed in Krishna's pastimes and having, playing tag in the forest, and jumping like a frog, or putting your mascara on, running half done and running to see Krishna, or you're in grass, saying, "Ooh, Krishna's coming."
Yeah, it's not that those Cowherd boys are playing while thinking, "Oh, thanks God I'm not down there." They're immersed. Yeah, good point. Nice. William says, "Thank you for this wonderful class, Nityananda Chandra Prabhu. Can someone please write the chapter and or texts in this?"
That's 11:10, Canto 11, Chapter 10, text number 12 and 13.
Okay.
Which, and if that matches, what was the verse that we read today? The last verse was that verse. The first sentence was that confusing sentence. But you see here, Prabhupada clarifies it. 10, 14, text number 25. 26. The conception of material bondage and the conception of liberation are both manifestations of ignorance.
Yeah.
So agyana, samgyao, bhavabhanda, moksho. The Cowherd boys are not thinking how to get out of Maya.
Nice. I like that line.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Nityananda Chandra Prabhu. Thank you very much.
Hopefully everybody's not more confused after attending my class.
No, it was very clear. It's very nice. Thank you. Okay, it was very nice seeing all of you, dear devotees. Have a wonderful day. Don't get yourself fixated on how to get out of Maya. Just keep your service going, and you'll naturally forget everything. right? Except Krishna and Prabhupada. That's our reality. That's our real existence. Everything else is meant to be used in service of that ultimate reality. Hare Krishna, Hare Rama. Thank you, Nityananda Chandra Prabhu. Nityananda Prabhu, we give you a big ki jai for this class. Thank you very much. We see you growing your hair back. Are you growing your mohawk back?
No, this is my hair hat for New York City.
Oh no,
It's a
like
winter-
winter gear. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much.
This is the longest my hair has been since like I was a
Yeah,
teenager.
I've never seen that. Your hair cut that long. Yeah.
Yeah. Long hair hippie.
Yeah, you're a hippie now. Okay, and who's Bhima, Prabhu? If you're a hippie, then Bhima is like, I don't know, Babaji. Bhima Babaji. Okay, Hare Krishna, thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Hare Krishna. Love you all. Hari Hari Bol. Sundarananda Prabhu ki jai to you. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.